I can't sleep at night. Every night, there's not one day that I haven't got pain. And it's enormous pain. I live on painkillers. I can't breathe normal.
This is Yanni Road and his friend Henny playing at a wedding. Yanni is a prominent businessman, a father and a husband. He's well liked and respected by the community of Kuruman in the Northern Cape. He is also a dedicated Christian, but he's ill. He's been diagnosed with mesothelioma, a cancer of the lung lining.
The last year, every day was a suffering for me. Every day I get up. Sometimes, some days I can't get up. I stay in bed because I haven't got the power.
Yanni worked on the asbestos mines near Kuruman when he was young. He built ventilation systems. 30 years later, he was diagnosed with mesothelioma. It can take up to 40 years for this disease to develop.
My greatest fear is leaving my family behind. I've made provisions for them. And I know that they will be looked after. But I'm still young. And if I didn't get this disease, I could have spent another 10 or 15 years with him.
A month after this interview, Yanni Roth died, leaving his wife Hanel and kids. He was only 49 years old. Most people in the Kalahari town of Kuruman have seen death many times. Today, Yanni Roth takes this road alone, like many who worked on the asbestos mines before him. Today, they lie in cemeteries all over Kuruman. Nearly everyone here can count at least 3 people they know who died from asbestos exposure. Many fear that they too, and those they love, will end up here. In South Africa, asbestos was first discovered near Priska, then Kuruman in the late 1880s. In desperate need of work, thousands were drawn to the area. This footage shows the complete lack of safety in those days. Workers were totally ignorant of the health hazards they faced. In the Northern Cape, mainly blue asbestos was mined. Locals call it harang because it looks like cotton thread. Of all of them, blue asbestos is the most dangerous. Its needle-like shape has the potential to sting a human lung and stay there. While brown and white asbestos can create cancer of the lung and asbestosis, blue asbestos causes the most lethal cancer of them all, mesothelioma. A number of multinationals once owned these mines. They finally landed up in the hands of Jeffco, a subsidiary of Genco. Then in 1989, Genco sold all its shares to Jeffco. Jeffco in turn sold its mines to the South African government. Asbestos was used all over the world for products like water pipes, roofs and brake pads on cars. 30 kilometers from Kuruman is Gamopedi village. Most people here were employed by South African mining company Jeffco. In 1996, when the last asbestos mine was closed, many like these miners were left without work and ill from asbestos exposure. Gabainewe Itang has 6 children. He is diagnosed with second-degree asbestosis. This disease is caused by the breathing of fine asbestos dust, which causes a reaction in the lung. Itang worked for Jeffco for 29 years, mining blue asbestos. Today he is 60. No one works in his family. All rely on his state pension.
Hanka jika sama na kuitili. Yeah, that's it. Oh boy. Hey. Juga buka kuala kahor yanu koni yanu. Bunga lagi bat salah bat salah bat tata tu. Yanu haki iswa. Bunga na baka bucewe karena itu karena dia pamukutial mumbuka tu. Itu lah kangka babat. Narakono sa chane. Haki mere kahar. Batu bawa bantin sebo ko buneba siile le cha buneba bici kat habu. Hakona isa paleti le bahisanti.
6 kilometers from Itang's house lies an unrehabilitated asbestos dump. The wind blows in the direction of the village. Almost every day, villagers breathe the asbestos polluted air. Itang is concerned and angry that his kids' lives are compromised. He fears that they too will end up ill like him. There are men in this village who are ill from asbestos exposure. One of them is Itang's friend, John Silike. He too is diagnosed with lung cancer, mesothelioma. It took only a year of working with blue asbestos for John to get sick. He may not live another year. John's house was built where blue asbestos was once stored. In his yard, asbestos fibers are everywhere. His family walks and plays on this ground every day. His house is not the only one like this in the village. The community of Guruman has decided to take action. They want to do something about the pollution and the increasing number of people that die from asbestos exposure. They're suing Jeffco. To do this, many go to Moffat Mission, where their lawyers operate. Not only ex-miners come here, but also the families of those who died. Khosi Imang once worked for Jeffco. He says he too has asbestosis. These former miners say state compensation for their illness is not enough. They also want Jeffco to pay.
Ba romelang gone go di ntshe di tshwane na tsane e re ha ke di isa ke be ke di fostata ke nna le tsone ke sala le tsone gore di ne le bopaki ka ke botshelo jwa bana bane le ha ke fule ke ira gore mosadi wa me a tla tsamaye ka tsone mo ke ne ke bereka gone a di bakaele ha bana le bonnete ba ka ba nthuse ba nne di tshwane na tsaka.
Ferias Williams is a field lawyer. As in Khosi Imang's case, she has encouraged many to bring all their documents. She is here to start a database of all possible claimants. She says her main challenge is that most of her clients are old and illiterate.
What we do with the registration process is we take down the details, which will be documented, which will have for future, where we get information like whether they've been certified, their medical benefit examinations, whether they've gone for that, their work history.
If they win their case, these lawyers plan to set up a fund for those who worked on the mines and are ill. This is not the only issue. Occupational lawyer Richard Spohr says his clients are not only suing Jeffco for their health, but also for the damage done to the environment by the asbestos mining and the dumps left behind.
There has been environmental pollution and devastation on a scale that's virtually unmatched anywhere in the world. We're talking about millions of tons of a deadly and very resilient fiber. The cleanup process focuses very much on the old mines and the old dumps, but to date there's been virtually no effort at all to clean up the broader environmental pollution, which poses a very serious health risk to neighboring communities. From our perspective, GENCOR's responsibility is open-ended. They haven't addressed the pollution. They haven't cleaned up the mess that they've created. People are being exposed on a daily basis. From the day they finally clean up the mess in the Northern Cape, well, from that day we can start counting down 50 years to when we'll see the last case. But until and unless they clean up, people will continue to become sick indefinitely.
GEFCO refused to grant us an interview. They say they're involved in a court action and litigation around this matter. To date, there are no statistics on the exact number of ex-miners who were exposed and are ill from blue asbestos. Many have gone back home to the rural areas, and others have died. Those mines in many parts of South Africa, a number of them are not rehabilitated. It's taken more than 10 years for the people of Kuruman to finally see a site like this. Witbank mine is being rehabilitated by a government-contracted company, EcoRehab. They say it will take another 12 months of hard work to finish this project. To rehabilitate this mine alone will cost the state 12.7 million rand.
We do create, in our initial stages of rehabilitation, literally a volcano of fiber into the air. There's no other way to do it. The best we try to suppress the problem is keep the areas that we physically work as wet as possible. We can't do it to the ideal, but we do the best we can under the circumstances. We're not ignoring. Our methodology is purely an intention to bring the system back to its original condition. What we are going to do here is to combine the two copies by first reshaping the dump. Its slopes will be the natural angle of the copies, and we will be filling the gap between the copies so that it will become one extended copy, and will have the look of one little mountain, and it should blend in. It will be a grazing area once we're finished.
Once this dump has been rehabilitated, it will be monitored for 5 years. Ecologists and pollution experts have to visit this site every 6 months. For rehabilitation to be a success, the soil should not erode and plants should have grown. The challenge is teaching the community to keep away from the site until it's back to its original state. Henningvlei, another village near Kuruman. For this community, proper rehabilitation cannot come soon enough. This is Mapalone Primary School. There are 51 learners from grade 1 to grade 4. Most are between 7 and 11 years old. The school is built on an old asbestos mine dump. These learners are not aware of the dangers of asbestos fibers found all over. They play carelessly in a contaminated soil and breathe polluted air. The school building is also built with asbestos bricks. According to records, the dump was rehabilitated 20 years ago by GEFCO, its previous owners, yet fibers have found their way out of the storage facility.
Then Marcus didn't work in the mine. Kanya Horkai Kurumidich. I collect a Bolam, Tisa or Pataku, the mine, you were never affect the hand.
The dump was once covered with a thin layer of gravel. Over time, the soil has eroded, leaving this dump exposed and releasing the deadly fibers back into the air of Henningvlei. A year ago, musician Yanni Road died of mesothelioma. His wife Hanili says she knew that one day she would have to accept his death, but she says it will take an eternity to come to terms with him not being there.
Die kleintjie herinner jou altyd. aan pappa. Waar is my pa? Ek wil na my pa toe gaan. Hoe verduidelik jy vir so 'n kleintjie? Eintlik, waar is my pa? Hy is by die Jesus. Hy is die sterretjie. As dit donker word, dan eers hardop sy uit en dan sal sy sê, daai blink sterretjie is my pappa. Dit hou 'n ou vas aan, jy bly dink aan die seer. Maar ek het baie herinneringe. Hy het net die hele tyd meer agteruit gegaan. Sy gewig het geweldig afgeneem. Hy was op pille gewees, wat hy heeldag pynpille moes gebruik het. Ons het nader aan die suurstof bottel langs sy bed neergesit, dat jy hom nader aan heeltemal moet oopdraai, dat hy nie asem kry nie. En ons is bang dat sy longe te gewoond raak aan die suurstof, dan wil jy dit nie te ver oopdraai nie. En dan sê hy, draai oop, ek kry nie asem nie. Ek sal die laaste week in die hospitaal in Bloemfontein nooit vergeet nie. En ek kan nie, dit bly voor my oor. Dit was 'n woensdagoggend, 5:20 het die hospitaal my gebel en gesê ek moet kom. Ek het in die hospitaal ingestap en ek het by hom gaan staan en sy voete was geswel en sy hande was geswel. So ek het sy ringe afgehaal en sy horlosie afhaal. En toe ek by hom kom, het ek net sy hand gevat en ek het vir hom gesê, ek is by jou. Weet jy dat net sy oë so opgetel het vir my gekyk en net so gemaak, en sy oë toegemaak en dit is verby.
Like Yanni Road, many patients with mesothelioma end up in Rose Park Hospital in Bloemfontein. There, they're treated by Dr. Verwoerd.
Any patient that's coughing chronically over a period of time and doesn't respond on any treatment should have a chest x-ray. If you're in the Western Cape, you may assume that it may be TB, most probably. In Northern Cape, we feel you must assume that it may be mesothelioma.
It's difficult to diagnose mesothelioma. If an X-ray is not enough to tell how far the cancer is spread, patients are given a CT scan. X-rays only take photographs of the whole lung, while the CT scan provides more detailed information on sections of the lung.
This is the CT scan. Now the patient is lying on his back. That's his vertebra, that's ribs, that's shoulder blades. This is the normal right side. On the left side, there's more density. There's even mass on the margin, and the lung is clearly smaller than on the other side. So this is very suggestive of a thick membrane around. There's probably, because of his asbestos history, a mesothelioma. In the end stages, they can't breathe at all. Lungs completely unfunctional. They can have severe chest pains because of infiltration of the cancer. And usually in that stage, it's terminal and there's nothing to be done.
Last year, James Renoster died from mesothelioma. He too was Dr. Verwoerd's patient. After a diagnosis, a patient generally lives up to 18 months. James only survived another 12. When he died, his daughter Yolanda and his wife were there.
Dit is onbeskryflik hoe jong mens moet hanker en spook om te lewe. Die asem was baie kort. En elke dag moes ek en my kinders toesien. Ons moet kyk na die man wat ons herken op die bed lê. Hy was vreeslik geswel. En op 'n stadium het die bloed begin opgooi.
Sy loop, het verswak. Hy kon nie meer loop nie. Dit het net gelê. Dan my ma, ek bewonder my ma verskriklik baie. Sy het hom altyd opgetel en vorentoe gelig en so het ons aangegaan. Maar wat eer gewees het is, ja, toe ek moet sien, hoe plaats hy sy asem my. Maar dit is gevaarlik. Ek weet nie wat is dit nie, maar
Iets goed is dit nie. Maar ek het nog my ma. En op die oomblik soos ek nou voel, my ma staan my baie by, sy praat baie met my ma. Ek het 'n paak nodig.
En in die kamer waar hy gesterf het, is ek baie keer so bedruk en hartseer voel en ek sit daar. En dan kom dit so by my. Jy sien dit wat gebeur het. Groot dae soos met sy verjaarsdag, Vadersdag. Toe moes sy alleen sit by die tafel en eet. Dit is my son baie.
Soos Vrydag, dan weet ons 5:00, hy kom huis toe. En dan het ons gewag. Want ek het al op 'n tyd by die hekke gaan staan. Maar dan sê ek vergeet, hy gaan huis toe kom. Of hy was baie lief vir tee. Dan maak ek tee van my dan. Maar dan haal ek klaar sy koppie uit. Dan onthou ek, maar hy sê my daar nie.
Het is moeilik vir my. Ek is meer by die begrafplaas as wat ek 'n mens is. En as ek bedruk voel, dan gaan ek graf toe, gaan sit ek. Ek weet dit beteken niks daar nie.
Guruman Hospital is part of the problem. It has no lung specialist, only community doctors. It has no way of providing a correct diagnosis for a suspected victim of asbestos.
Apart from HIV, AIDS, TB, the third killer disease in our Kalahari node here is asbestosis. It really pains me that my colleague who died recently from this terrible disease never had any proper checkup all his lifetime. If there were mechanisms in place, I believe this man's life would have long been saved.
George Batana is a laundry supervisor at the hospital. He regularly performs autopsies, but he is not paid to do them. He learned how to from a former doctor.
Asbestos se yan choose. Ka le mosadi wa ka le ene o na le yone. Jaanong ke tshogile go heta ka ke utlwile ngaka e re le nna ya ntsamaela. 2
George performs autopsies to help families establish cause of death so they can get compensation.
6 7 8
He keeps his own statistics of how many are suspected of dying from asbestos-related diseases. There are many. Virginia Litsolo is 47 years old, a certified mesothelioma case. She worked at JEFCO for only 2 years, from 1978 to 1980. 22 years ago, she stopped sorting through asbestos at JEFCO. She's only realized now that she is dying. She's a mother of 6. Her youngest son is only 2 years old. She does not have long to live. Mesothelioma produces water in her lungs. She will drown in her own fluids.
Yana hakumuna tukur jibubule jibuloi yeksitu ila beksitu atika war kharani yokusi yan iglo to harabuna ke ale bani atoko mukuni kawo jingor jibula ya wanagor ha khongwen ka to khongwan ka sitwi